Hello everyone, Ben here, and well, I decided I'm going to look at 2024 and establish kind of a base prediction, not a baseline, what if the election is 50-50. I'm going to establish an actual prediction for 2024. Part of this is because I'm kind of lazy and this is going to be generic Republican versus generic Democrat, but I kind of want to make a prediction based off of, what generally happens after a party has controlled the White House for 8 years, which is, in my opinion, much more likely than people would suspect. Remember, Obama had a 45% approval rating on average in 2012, and Trump isn't that far behind that, and honestly, I think he only needs a 40% approval rating to be reelected. Because if we remember, that 45% approval rating for Obama wound up being a 4-point victory, and he won, while he won fewer states, he didn't lose out on that many electoral votes compared to 2008. He won 357 in 2008, and he won 322 in 2012. Therefore, it's not unreasonable to think that Trump would still maintain his advantage in 2020. So, pretend this is just Republican, Democrat, right? So, I'm just going to go alphabetically for this, and I'm going to assume that the Democrats would have the advantage, and more than likely the economy is still going to be doing extremely well. There might be a minor slowing of the growth, but it'd still be doing okay, and any Republican could point to, any Republican running could point to the economy, so I'd say the Democrats would be favored by maybe a point or two at most. And this is just based off of the economic projections I've seen in various places, as well as just my general feeling about how things are going to go. The economy is not going to crash. That we're about, many years out from that. A crash will probably happen, interestingly enough, I would suspect it would happen in 2029, or in the mid to late 2020s, which is bad news for whoever controls the White House in that area, but it's not relevant for 2024. I'll get to Maine in a bit. If you can see this, I've got it racked up to 0. I just can't update it. I would, but I can't. So Alabama, we can say that comfortably that that's going to go to the Republicans. So I'm going to assume that the Democrat gets 51% and the Republican gets 49%. I'm going to pretend third parties don't exist for this video. So Alaska would go to the Republicans. You've got Arizona still going to the Republicans, but it's very much a swing state. Again, this is just based off of my baseline prediction. But there's a not insignificant chance it goes to the Democrats. It would be definitely one of the most contested states, especially with its growing electoral power. Arkansas, deep red state. We got California, deep blue state. I'll actually come back to Arizona. We've got Colorado. That would definitely go blue. Connecticut, still going blue. DC, I don't think anybody that's surprising. Delaware, again, still going blue. Florida, I'm going to come back to, though my rating says it should still be a GOP state. I'm going to come back to it because I'm a little skeptical of that swing, but not super skeptical. Georgia, is swinging towards the Democrats, but and would be more Republican than either Arizona or Florida. But I'm going to come back to that state as well. Hawaii is pretty blue. Idaho, very, very Republican, as we all know. Illinois. And if you want to talk about who the candidates would be, I'm going to pretend, let's say, Nikki Haley wins the primaries for the Republicans. And for the Democrats, let's go with, who would be a Democrat that would definitely be good? Well, that would probably win the 2024 primary. I think by then the progressives would have taken over the Democrat Party, so you could very easily have a very young progressive at the helm of the Democrat Party. Probably from either the West Coast or the Northeast. Let's put in, you know what, let's just go Kamala Harris, who, by the way, my rating of her chances of running for 2020 have dramatically increased. I'm going to say she's very likely to run in 2020. So, but let's say 2024, okay? Just for this example, just did Illinois. Indiana, very, very Republican. Iowa is still Republican, and actually it's just growing more and more Republican. So I'm actually going to leave that as a Republican state. I think it's losing its status as a swing state. Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, and Maine is actually supposed to be a little bit more Republican, but we're still going to give the Democrats the 3 just because. Yeah, I'm gonna give the Democrats the 3 just because. It would be a year they'd be favored to win the election, but the state's mostly gone. It really is. In 2024, it'd be about ready to flip if the Republicans don't control the White House. Maryland and Massachusetts are so blue that I don't even have to worry about truly mentioning them. Michigan says it'd be about 5 points more Republican, according to the spreadsheet I have, but I'll come back to that. Minnesota, about a point more Republican, so it would be about a toss-up, but I'm going to come back to that state. Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, and Nebraska, I'm not even going to bother because we all know how those will go. Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, and Nebraska. We've got Nevada, which by this point is mostly Democrat, so I'm not even going to bother coming back to that state. New Hampshire, because of the environment, I'm going to give it to the Democrats. Jersey, again, Democrat. Same thing with New Mexico. New York, very Democrat state. North Carolina, I'm going to come back to that one because it is definitely getting closer. And I think by 2024, it won't be outside the realm of possibility for Democrats to win it in an average year for them, instead of what happened in 2008, which I think was a bit of an outlier. Also, I filled in North Dakota good. Ohio, it would be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult in the future for Democrats to win the upper Midwest unless they start appealing to those voters. I'm less skeptical progressives can do it because these voters, on a decent amount of issues, are fairly socially conservative, even if on others they're more socially liberal. And Ohio's been trending towards the Republicans anyway, and Trump won it by a significant margin and will likely repeat that in 2020. Same thing with Iowa. So I'm not too, I don't think I'm going out too far on a limb and saying Ohio and Iowa are going to be, I think, too far gone for the Democrats unless they win by 10 or more points nationally. And plus, if I do the analysis, and I've done it, this entire region has been moving towards the Republicans since the 90s. And, that's over, 6, 7, 8 election cycles. That's no longer, oh, it's just one fluke. No, it's a trend. It's just like the trend shows that this area has been for a long time moving towards the Democrats. Same thing with Texas. Sort of. Texas, how bad Trump did might be an outlier, but I definitely think that the Democrats were picking up steam in Texas anyway. Same thing with the Southeast Corridor. I think it's moving slower than Democrats want to believe, but it is moving towards them. Oklahoma, don't even think we need to pretend here. Oregon, uber blue. Pennsylvania, I'm going to actually come back to that one. Rhode Island, blue. South Carolina, red, red, red. And South Dakota, same thing. And we've got Tennessee being very Republican. Texas. I'm going to keep this in the Republican column, but it would definitely be a contested state. It would be, I'm trying to think of a good analogy from 2016. It would have been like the Democrats picking up Georgia. Could it have happened? Yes. Was it definitely a possibility? Yeah. But was it likely? Not really. Or it would have been like Trump picking up, it would have been like Trump winning New Mexico, for a reasonable comparison, the other direction. Could it have happened? Yeah. Was it a possibility? Technically, but was it likely? Not in any, not in the most realistic scenarios. So that's why I put Texas. That's why I think Texas is still going to be fairly red in 2024. And I think the Democrats' chances in the 2020s really hinge on Texas. Utah. 2016 was a fluke based off of third-party votes. Vermont, Virginia, and Washington, I don't think we even need to really discuss these in any serious sense of the word. Those are pretty heavily Democrat states, especially in the modern era. West Virginia and Wyoming, don't really need to talk about those. And that kind of leaves us with this battery of swing states. And the Democrats having an advantage. But here's the thing. Let's say they do win this. Well, if they win the Southeast Corridor in Arizona, yeah, okay. They don't even need Georgia to do it. And they would win. But here's the thing. If they get just Arizona and North Carolina, then they have to, and let's say out of the Sun Belt and Southeast Corridor, they're going to need to pick up 2 of these states. Or, yeah, they're going to need to pick up 2. And in the case of these 2, they would need to pick up a 3rd. So let's come back. Let's actually talk about these individual states. Arizona, according to my calculations, that I demonstrated, that you can look at, the live stream and the video from Sunday, won't be ready to flip even in 2036, which I think that maybe shows that my calculations are a bit, I don't want to say inaccurate, but they're taking the long-term trend over a short-term trend. And the short-term trend is definitely much more favorable to the Democrats. And I am willing to, say that 2024 should be the year Arizona is ready to flip. And when I say ready to flip, it's the year that the Democrats have about a 50-50 shot of winning the state in a 50-50 election. 2020 is a bit too early, but it could happen with the right conditions. A decent Democrat win, I'd say maybe 3 points-ish, and maybe even a little bit of a home field advantage. Maybe choose a prominent Arizona Democrat who is popular, and that might work. But 2024 would be a year I wouldn't be too surprised if Arizona went blue. So I'm gonna award the Democrats Arizona. Okay. Minnesota's been surprisingly voting. Minnesota has swung very rapidly, and I'll come back to that state in a bit. Let's go with Georgia. It won't be ready to flip by my calculations. Same thing as Arizona, but I kind of disagree. There is a recent trend that shows it is it's moving towards the Democrats a little bit faster than I think my long-term trend shows. But I don't think it'll be ready to flip until 2032 or 2028 or 2032. I think that those would be the most likely years that it would flip. So 2024, you need a stronger than usual Democrat campaign, which I'm not sure they're going to get in 2024. And especially if they run a progressive, I'm not sure they'll be able to win Georgia in that instance. So I'm going to give Georgia to the Republicans in 2024. If it's whatever a generic Democrat in 2024 is versus whatever a generic Republican is in 2024. North Carolina, on the other hand, even though my calculations show it shouldn't be ready to flip until 2032, I think there's a good argument to say that they could win it in 2024 or 2028 or 2032. There is a good argument to make for that, simply because it's been moving towards the Democrats ever so slightly, very slow, and at this point it is a state where turnout is a little more important than the national campaign and how well you're doing. It's a turnout-based swing state, and I think the Democrats will understand how to turn people out in North Carolina by 2024. At least it makes sense, especially after 8 years of Republican rule. And again, I'm assuming in this instance that Trump has won re-election. Florida. They tend to vote for the incumbent. And then they will flip and vote for the challenging party after 2 cycles. So they'll vote So they voted for Carter. The exception was 1980 when they voted for Reagan. But in 84 they voted for Reagan. Another exception when they voted for H.W. Then they voted for H.W. again, even though H.W. lost. Then they voted for Clinton, and then they flipped and voted for Bush, though a lot of people may contest that. Then they voted for Bush again, but then they flipped and voted for Obama twice. Then they voted for Trump, and I don't think that pattern is going to change. 2024 is the interesting one. Will they swing back towards the Democrats? It would take a bit of a monumental effort based off of my calculations because it is a swing state. But there's good evidence that it is becoming a bit more Republican. But also, one could make the argument that the Cuban population is becoming less Republican, and that the Puerto Rican population is might vote more Democrat. But I'll come back to Florida. Well, let's go with Wisconsin, which I think is the most conservative of these 4 states, and I'm going to award it to the Republicans. I think by 2024 you can almost call this a Republican-leaning corridor. And Wisconsin is, like I said, the most conservative. So even in the year the Democrats win the election, I would expect the Republicans to hold Wisconsin. Now let's go to Pennsylvania, which was the next closest state if we talk about percentages. It's losing votes, and a lot of that loss is... I actually don't know where they're losing most of their votes. Might be the suburbs, could be the rural areas, or it could be Philly. It depends, but again, the whole region has been moving, and I'm going to give it to the Democrats, and that means I'm going to give Michigan and Minnesota to the Democrats as well. But by 2028, these are states that it's going to take a monumental effort, all 4 of them, that it would take almost a landslide for the Democrats to win, unless they have an incumbent advantage. And I'm also going to go ahead and give Florida to the Democrats. So this is what I would expect the 2024 election map to look like with an open seat where Trump won re-election. If it's an incumbent Democrat, we can go ahead and flip these 2 states if the Democrat is an incumbent. Unless the market has crashed, but we're going to pretend that it hasn't. So this is probably what would happen in the case of Trump having 2 terms. This is what happens if he loses in 2020. So we're going to go with this for my prediction, for my basic prediction for 2024. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you had a nice day. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys tomorrow when I look at my next swing state, which is Maine.